held on October 25th, 2017.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We may proceed with the chair's report.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Happy Wednesday. It's great to thank you for being here, board members, general manager. Want to jump right in because we have a full calendar this morning. So I want to just address the elephant in the room, shall we, and talk about the issues that we've been grappling with over the course of the last 2 years, which is NYCHA and lead-based paint. I think it's important, again, for the board and the public, and most importantly our residents, to recognize that New York has record low level of lead paint poisoning amongst its children. And again, we are so focused on children because that is what the science tells us is where the potential risk may be. Almost 80% of New York City children are tested via their pediatricians, and that data is collected by the New York City Department of Health. Over the course of several years, that the numbers of children with elevated blood levels continues to be incredibly low. That said, one child with elevated blood levels is still one child too many. And as we have shared with this body, our role in ensuring that our apartments are safe is a focus of our work as part of Next Generation NYCHA, and something that we remain committed to. We have acknowledged the compliance gaps that have occurred here at the authority. As you know, it's something that we have been working on as part of our conversations with the Southern District, which continue. And most importantly, what are we doing about that? About our efforts to both address the organizational challenges as well as actually doing the work, ensuring that we can certify that our apartments are free of the potential hazard. So as you know, there are approximately 176,600 units, to be exact, of New York City public housing units, and the potential of apartments that cannot without a doubt be said to have a potential hazard is about 55,000. These are units that were constructed pre-1968. That date is very important because that is when lead paint was abolished in construction and use in residential buildings in New York City, and so what our work has been focused on is conducting annual inspections for children under the age of 6, which is what local law 1 requires here in New York City. That is what we did in 2016 and continue to do in 2017, as it is an annual obligation. This very board has approved the contracts for vendors that allow us to augment our personnel to actually go and do the inspections, as well as remediate hazards that might be found. As an extra precaution and as an abundance of free residents the opportunity for their entire apartment to be painted. Both industry and science tell us that if a potential hazard is found, the area is cleaned and then painted over with a safe paint that we use in our apartments. And so that's the work that's currently underway. I have every expectation that the general manager and team will be completing those inspections at the end of the year, and with the associated work completed by the first quarter of 18. And I want to make sure and continue to push out communication to our residents to ensure that, if there's questions about inspection protocol and scheduling, please do reach out to folks management offices. It is really important that we get into people's apartments. I know that it's even been covered that we're taking locks. As you know, that was a policy that we changed over a year and a half ago, regardless of this particular issue. But it underscores the importance of us getting into the apartments of our residents with children under the age of 6. So that is the work that is underway. As you know, we also, the mayor and I announced a series of reforms last week that included the establishment of what will be NYCHA's first ever compliance department. Again, acknowledging that function, which had largely been a shared and decentralized, must actually be a centralized function of an agency of this kind and size. And we announced the acting appointment of Edna Wells Handy, who will join the agency imminently, as well as the creation of a national-led task force that will advise me specifically and this body around both compliance and resident-facing education, et cetera. We have some skilled and well-known experts in this field to bring that expertise to us here at the authority. So we will continue to report out to you on these issues as well as to the broader public. And I'm happy to questions on that item if there are any. More to come, okay. We are an organization of 11,000 men and women and a $3 billion agency, and and I think it's important to note that we continue that important work. Our next gen operations model, which as you recall is our effort to move accountability and really sort of a performance to the development level, has been for the last year and a half. Pleased to say that we have now added Manhattan into that new management approach, next gen operations. Again, it's very much focused on creating an environment with retrained, upskilled staff, development-based budgeting, and greater development sort of metrics and visibility into those metrics to ensure that we are improving quality of life for our residents. We now, by the end of this year, have about 78,000 units into that in that portfolio, and adding Manhattan will add another 40,000 units into that portfolio, and that will continue with the goal of, by the end of 2018, the entire portfolio now has been retrained, skilled, and is working under this new asset-based management approach. As we continue to implement the country's largest Sandy recovery program, every month there's a new a new construction happening underway. We broke ground at the Redfern development. Approximately 120 construction is underway here. Everything, new roofs, cameras, playgrounds, lighting, and boilers and other key infrastructure and community assets are being both not just added back, but enhanced and made resilient at this development. And this is particularly important because Redfern is approximately a mile or so from the ocean. So making these developments where 1,500 households safe from future weather events is critical. We recognize that we are more than just buildings. We're also communities, and we partner with a variety of nonprofit and philanthropic partners. Services to residents, namely our seniors. I was pleased to be with resident leaders and elected officials at the Chelsea Elliott houses, where we broke ground on a new senior center that will be run, that is currently run and will be run by the Hudson Guild, and will provide state-of-the-art programming, et cetera, to the seniors and residents of that community and the greater Chelsea community as well. And it will it actually is serving to we talk about safe, clean, and connected. It actually will be connecting the street into the development with a really transparent face to the community. We opened up our I believe our 11th Jobs Plus site at the Penn Wortman houses last month as well. This is a HUD program, evidence-based program that actually puts residents to work, really getting them, meeting them where they are, and making sure they are job ready. And this is one more important asset that we are bringing back to the communities that we serve. We also graduated our Sandy job training graduates. As you know, this board committed to apply Section 3 to the FEMA program. That was a policy decision that we made. And so what has been a really important outcome of that is not just the sort of construction jobs that happen while construction is happening, but actually training people for long-term career pathways. And that's what this apprenticeship program has done as part of that. Some fun, we actually built a playground or 6 hours at Commandant Houses. We last year announced a partnership with Kaboom, which is a national play-based organization that seeks to really transform play spaces, mostly for in urban areas. We have only 265 left to go. But this is our first, and we've already identified the next, which will be in April. It's a real community event. Residents, neighbors, elected officials, community partners come out and construct a playground in 6 hours, and it's amazing. And Blue is our corporate sponsor, and we will continue to roll out this program. The other important component here is the resident leaders also commit to helping to raise funds for the initiative. So it really is a true community partnership, and the result is just fantastic. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hearing none, I'll pass it on to Michael. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Board. I'd like to share with you the activities around our key performance indicators of operations at work orders, emergencies, maintenance, and skilled trades, our vacancies, which is our apartment turnaround time, and our customer satisfaction numbers. The first slide talks about the overall number of work orders open at the end of, let's see, I'm sorry, this is the opened and closed work orders. So we're now looking at, for the month of October 2017, we created 245,495 work orders. We closed 227,000 of those work orders. Comparatively, a year ago, we created 241,000, closed 211,000. So again, these are the final four bar, when you look at the two bars for there, of looking at 16 and 17 numbers. It's again showing that we are creating more work orders, but we're also doing more work. Next chart talks about the total number of work orders that are open at the end of October. At the end of October, there were 148,652 work orders, which was higher than the previous month of 144,000 and higher than the previous year, 145,000. A review of the work orders and the failure codes note that paint is up about 3,293 work orders compared to October, based on our lead paint inspection work that the chair talked about. And our heating work orders are up by about 1,000 work orders based on the beginning of heating season. This slide just notes 2016 and 2017 work orders by category. So this is a breakout of the type of work orders. And as you can see and hopefully read, that about 45% of all of our work orders are in the categories of paint and plaster. As the end of October, there were 47,284 work orders which were outstanding, which were paint about 32%, and plastering was about 19,000 work orders, which is about 13% of our overall work orders that are outstanding. Next slide talks about the response time to our emergencies. And emergency work orders are high priority items such as heat, hot water, gas, elevator outages, etc. We have a target of 24 hours to respond. For the month of October, we responded on average of 9.7 hours to respond to these emergencies, compared to a year ago where it was 14.6 hours. On the maintenance work orders, this is the time for us to respond to simple repairs. For the month of October, on average, we were averaging 3.8 days to respond to a simple repair. This is, we have a target of 7 days, and this is compared to our 6.1 days, which was our average in 2016, for the month of October. This slide talks about the total number of skilled trade work orders that were created and closed. And again, these are looking at 17 versus 16 numbers. In 2017, we created 107,000 work orders for skilled trades, and we closed compared to 2016, where we created a little over 101,000 work orders and closed 81,000. That's about 17,000 more work orders that were for 2017 versus 2016. This slide refers to the amount of time it takes for us to respond to a skilled trade work order. Skilled trade service levels measures the authority's performance in addressing more complex repairs, such as carpentry, painting, and plastering. Service level in October was 68.4 days, which is lower than the previous month of 74.7 days, but higher than last year's numbers. We're pleasantly seeing improvements in all areas across the skilled trades. Still much work to be done. This slide refers to the overall open and closed work orders for skilled trades. A total of 132,771 skilled trade work orders were opened at the end of October 17, compared to 129,846 which were opened a month earlier. Again, this is in 2016, 119,219 work orders were created. So we are actually creating almost 11% more work orders now than we were creating a year ago. This slide refers to the performance of our apartment turnaround. It measures the average days to reoccupy a NYCHA apartment after it's been vacated. The year-to-date turnaround for October 17 was 55.2 days. It was higher than last October, 51.8 days. The increase can attribute to the higher percent heavily vandalized units and fire units that we're now tackling. This slide is begins to look at the more nuanced approach to how we what our turnaround performance is. The blues at the very bottom suggest that in October 2017, about 30% of the apartments that were turned over were done in 30 days. The red talks about the number of apartments that were turned over between 31 and 60 days. That's about 38%. So we're tracking about 68% of our apartments. We're going to continue to track this. This is a slide that I think we'll be looking to try to simplify moving forward. Finally,
remind us our target
is 30 days. And again, that's a target that I think we do need to reevaluate based on just our performance.
May not be realistic.
Yes. Yeah. And for customer satisfaction, customer satisfaction measures the percentage of residents satisfied with the overall experience with the repair. This information is obtained from the result of monthly robocalls conducted by our community contact center for work orders that have been closed. And in October, 79.5% of the residents that were contacted reported that they were satisfied with the repair portion. And that board completes the report of the general manager. Any questions that you might have?
Some of the tickets, the work tickets that are being created, did you say that a good majority of them come as child tickets? In other words, the initial ticket, we found that now there were other repairs that needed to be done.
Mhm.
So we created a child ticket in order to complete the initial ticket.
Right.
So would you say that that's a good portion of the additional tickets that are being
You
created?
know, the majority are the simple repairs. We are finding an increase, though, in the number of child tickets as we're becoming more and more aware of the performance of the skill trades required to complete an overall job. But for the most part, the majority of the simple repair work orders. But we do have there has been an increase in terms of the child tickets. And again, that's something we're looking at as a management opportunity and a management tool.
Anybody else? I have another one.
Go ahead.
There was a program that we I think implemented, and it was to save the resident time as well as the people that are going to come through the repairs, and that was to do multiple repairs at the same time, so that it would eliminate the resident from actually having to be there missing 5 days, as opposed to with the new program being there maybe 2 days. Are we still utilizing that
Very,
system?
very much so. And I think some of the performance numbers are indicating the success of that program. So as opposed to the resident having a second time for a follow-up based on the original inspection, we're actually in there with carts, with things like smoke detectors and with screwdrivers and things that we know that are common repair items. And we're repairing as much as we can while we're in the apartment, with the real focus being on health and safety items.
Pam, going back to slide 21, what do you attribute the emergency work orders? Understand that heating season begins in October, there'll be a slight uptick, but it was just that performance is significantly better than last year. So
I'm glad you asked that,
what do
Chair.
you
Yeah.
attribute that to?
Yeah, I think it's been a lot warmer at the beginning of this heating season than it was a year ago. Thank you for asking the question. It's kind of an anomaly that sort of pokes out why it was so great last year. It isn't a question of our ability to respond better this year than last necessarily. It really has been a little warmer in the beginning of this heating season.
Are there any other reasons why it may be, we may have fewer heating outages?
Thank you again, Chair, for asking the question, because this is the second year of our summer overhaul. We actually have now looked at, during the warmer seasons of spring and summer, we're doing additional work around preventive maintenance. We're actually cleaning out the boiler, doing the checks and all the parts, and ensuring that we have redundancy at all of our spots. So because of the age of our stock, things break all the time. However, I think what we're now finding, based on the repair numbers, is that the downtime is less because we have redundant systems that pick up the slack for when a boiler breaks, for example.
One last question on page 24. So skill trades has been our Achilles heel, I would say. I don't think that's too aggressive to say. And it looks like that there's starting to be a downward trend in the service levels, not the total number, because as you said, we're creating more work, but the service levels. So what would you attribute that to?
Again, I think what we've looked at is having an identification by craft and by employee, by staffer, what their actual wrench time is. So we actually are now looking at managing our response based on industry standards and making sure that there's materials in place that the skill craft need, and a better sort of planning logistics, so that we're actually looking at having the sequencing done tighter. But to your point, Chair, there's been some really good ones on elevator mechanics. We went down from 6.7 days on average to 5.5 days. Electricians went down from 60 days to 54 days. Plumbers actually went down to 92 days down to 91 days. So they're across the board, and I think the overall numbers reflect that. There has been improvement. And I think that what really is impacting that is our ability to get materials in folks' hands. In fact, there's a resolution on before the board today to talk about even increasing that capacity. as well as our overall planning of that. And most importantly, really, I think holding our staff accountable to around repair activities.
Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you.
We'll take our first calendar item.
Good morning, board members, chair. Deborah Goddard for Capital. I'm going to start with the first two items. Items 1 and 2 are the recommendation to award a contract for exterior restoration and roofing replacement to Zoria House LLC. This is for work at Bayview. The bid was divided into two bid packages because of the size of the development, but Zoria is the recommended contractor for both. The low bid for the first contract, the low bidder failed to secure its bid bond, and hence we went to the second low, which was Zoria. So the first contract is in an amount of almost $15 million. The second contract is in an amount of almost $29 million. In both cases, Zoria was over our estimate by about 27%. However, looking at the other bids, we also see that everyone was ranged next from 46 to 100% over bid. So we think that Zoria's bid was reasonable. We are seeing in our roof work a significant escalation in price. Some of this is caused by a change in code. Some of it is the market that we're in right now, and we'll be looking at the market more closely. VNC has been cleared. There are no issues to preclude award. For Section 3 hires, they were a goal is 4 for the first contract and 6 for the second contract. Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Will this work allow us to bring any apartments that are offline, online? You know,
I don't know. We can find out.
my understanding is that there are some apartments that are offline partly because there are substantial other issues like.
To the extent these will be top floor, to the extent there are top floor in this development, yes, but I can find out.
Okay. And then there's just it's a management question. So perhaps this has been on there, but I hadn't noticed it before, that you refer to the department as you're referring to team numbers now. Team 1.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, is that a new
Nomenclature?
approach?
We had in the past, a while ago, had borough, right? You were in the Manhattan team or the Bronx team. We had technically moved away from that because that's not how work flows, but we were still using that phraseology. So this is neutral. The work flows to whatever team can take the work. We also had a team called City Capital. But if we're getting more in City Capital than we're getting in federal funding, we can't keep loading up that group. So this is just a way of normalizing management of the capital work.
I see. Thank you.
Item 3 is the recommendation to award a grounds improvement contract for Queensbridge North and South to Sports Tech Construction in the amount of almost $1.5 million. This is to address and upgrade the grounds and play equipment at both developments, which have deteriorated. Sports Tech has done jobs for us and are satisfactory. VNC, no issues to preclude award. Their bid came in just a little bit under our estimate. They are proposing 1 Section 3 hire, and this is a city council funded project. Or is the recommendation to reject all bids for the Washington and Carver houses upgrade of play areas. We determined that the specifications and the drawings had some inconsistencies, and therefore the bid package was not really fair. And working with law, we've come to an agreement that we should reject these bids and rebid in December.
What was the projected completion date for this, and what will this delay? How will this delay affect that?
I will talk in general terms, and I can get you a more. Given that we were awarding now at this season, I'm not sure we would have had much. I'm not sure we would have started right away. So we can use this sort of cold winter weather season to do the bidding. So I would assume there's not a huge difference in completion, but I can confirm that.
Mm-hmm. And we'll just have to communicate that out to the resident leaders
Yes.
that I know who've been very focused on this
Yes.
particular.
Okay, items 5, 6, and 7 relate to local law 11 program, and I wanted to provide some context, the context that I gave you, Chair. So some background on local law 11 and why we are seeing increases in these contracts. Part of it, frankly, was a management issue, which we've dealt with. We failed to plan and take into account how many winter seasons work would not be done. Every winter season, freeze thaw, you should predict an increase in the amount of work that has to be done to repair our brickwork. Sometimes soft costs were left out of the budget. In addition, the estimating, which we do by industry standard, means in every building you look closely at one, and then the rest is binocular. That's industry standard, but as you can imagine, it's a pretty broad guesstimate when push comes to shove. We are going to double the number of drops we do. We are also going to hold the architectural firm that does the scoping to do interim inspections and to sign off on the work, holding them, I think, more accountable for the start. We've worked with OMB because OMB funds most of this work for us. The city funds a lot of this work. They agreed that we may be paying more for the inspections, but it's worth it to get better estimates. And we are working with them now to increase the funding for the current work to make sure we do it. As I said, issues which we have addressed, and going forward, I hope we don't see anything like this. So I will go over the specific items. Item 5 is an increase to a contract with Zoria Housing in the amount of $6 million to a contract of approximately $15 million. This is city capital and mixed finance. Item 6 is an increase to a contract with Vibrant Contracting and Builders, Inc. Change order is almost $16 million. This is, again, city cap and mixed finance funds. I will also say all these amendments are within the terms of the existing contract. Item number 7 is an increase for the work being done, the sidewalk shed work. Corporation, as you know, the sheds go hand in hand with doing our repair work. The increase is $3 million.
So just walk me through, if local law 11 changes, or there are changes to local law 11
we cycle, there's a 5-year inspection every 5 years.
5-year inspection. And so are we in a place where we know, these management issues aside, that the current cycle and the corresponding shedding can come down within the 5-year period before the next starts? You see what I'm saying? No, because it just means continuous shedding because there'll be a new cycle.
It's very, obviously, as you're well aware, Chair, very dependent upon the funding, and we have not had funding that's allowed us to plan to get through a cycle. So yes, we often do take shedding down, goes up, but we do not keep it up just because that may happen.
Right.
If it's up for a period of time, it's because we do not have the funding to do the repair. Items 8 through 11 are change orders with respect to the exterior brickwork restoration at Cassidy Lafayette. These are different in nature. These are 4 change orders that came in over the towards the end of the work, 4 separate in response to requests for information. They were additional brick and lintel replacement work, a revision to the balcony guardrail design because of structural integrity, concrete repairs, and a complete repainting of balconies and spalled areas rather than a partial repainting, which would not be the quality we want to provide. That increase is approximately $1.9 million.
So the work was done and then there were craft
During the work, but they
During
came
the
in
work.
towards the end. We are closing out this contract.
Which number was that?
Number 10 was.
Those were 8 through 11. There were 4 change orders. Items
So-
8, 9, 10, and 11.
Just walk us through how this works. So there was a contract, they're on site, and then they discovered more work that needs to be done, and so that's why we have these change orders. Is
Or
that
they
clear?
thought that the painting on the balcony, it might have even been our inspector that said that's not going to look. To do a complete repainting. They asked our design department, and eventually me, and I agreed we should do a complete repainting versus just patch painting. And then some is at that concrete, yes, as they're up doing the work, they notice more work when they're right there in the at the
And
face.
what's the check and balance on that for the contractor saying, oh, you know what, you need complete replacement, more
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Overseeing it. How do we make sure there's a
Frankly, we almost have too much oversight because, as I said, these all come up as far as me. But we do have a design department that is responding to the requests for information, so they review what's going on, and we have inspectors in the field, our staff, or we have a construction management firm that is providing inspection. The change orders actually this work has not been done pending approval, which is not industry standard. Industry standard would be keep going on the work. You will negotiate the change order. We are frankly going to move more and more towards that model because we lose our negotiating leverage when we say, oh, we're going to stop the work. And but anyway, to the bottom line, we have a lot of oversight, perhaps too much.
And every change order over 100,000, I believe, has to come to the board. So that's per.
yeah.
Frankly, I think some of these things should have been caught at design and at bid, and we're dealing with that, like the structural integrity of the balcony. Oh, item number 12 is the ratification of a sole source contract and the amendment of an agreement with Sunset Park Redevelopment Committee, Inc. So we are making use of the weatherization program. It's a federal program that comes through the state. The state contracts with profit entities that do all of the work in a given geographic area. So we have to work with Sunset Park. That's not to indicate we have any complaints. We enjoy the partnership. Just to say they are the only vendor we can work with. So we're asking for the ratification of the contract with them, as well as an amendment. In the weatherization program, they do an initial cost via an audit, and then Sunset comes in, gets out there, and sees that maybe there's more work to do. We are going to change that model going forward. I do know that is the nature of the weather it's managed. We are going to change that. We have to put a match in. A lot of this is state funding. We have to put a match in somewhere between 25 and 40%. We were at a 25% match. With these changes, we'll be at a 29% match. And we expect the utility costs at these sites to go down between 10 and 15% annually. So I am asking for, again, ratification of the sole source contract with Sunset Park, as well as an increase in the value of the contract by about $148,000. Yes.
Can you explain just a little bit more about how we account for the increase? What is the increase entail?
The increase, it's really the same. It's pretty much the same scope of work, but being out at the site, having the contractor actually being at the site and seeing that there needs to be more work. And I'm trying to scan down here for the specifics. So I think that where you're going to see some concerns when you really get to the site are going to be your window replacement, the ventilation improvements, and the replacement of boilers, and what the full nature of the work is. Things like shower heads, obviously, and aerators we can estimate very fully.
So it's more, we're doing more?
No, but we're finding out it's going to be more costly when the contractor actually gets a bid, right? We had an audit, we had SP Sunset doing their audit, providing an estimate. Now we've got a contractor bid, which of course. That's it for now. I will see you at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Goddard.
Morning, Chair and the Board. My name is John Sajazi. I'm the VP for IT. I'm presenting on behalf of Bob Morano today, who happens to be very ill and couldn't make the meeting. I'll be presenting items 13 and 14. Item number 13 is requesting permission to enter into amendment with an agreement with SunGuard Availability Services to support disaster recovery services for NYCHA's technology infrastructure. It would invoke a disaster recovery service, a catastrophic event that caused the failure of our 90 Church Street data center. Disaster recovery services would require SunGuard to restore our core network availability in critical systems such as Maximo, Siebel, and Oracle Financials at an offsite place other than New York City. It's actually in New Jersey. This is a 5-year contract, which the first 2 years have already been consumed. And this is seeking an amendment where we would fund the remaining 3 years. Therefore, we're requesting your permission. $1.196 million and $316. That again.
We got it.
$1,196,316.
We got it.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Any questions? Sure.
How do we, because the nature of disasters, it doesn't happen until it happens.
Right.
How do we know they're effective, and what sort of testing do they do?
There is. We do testing once a year, and we run the systems and we back up the systems. We have folks on site, both here and at SunGuard's facilities in New Jersey, and they make sure that the systems come up. We have folks that will test the data. Business folks will come in. They will go through the data and make sure the systems are working properly. So we do that once a year.
Once a year, is that
Yes.
industry standard?
That is industry standard. That is a HUD requirement as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 14 is requesting authorization to enter into agreement with Dell Marketing LP for various Microsoft products that are used by NYCHA. Dell is an authorized reseller of Microsoft products, and this was purchased off the New York State OGS contract. NYCHA uses Microsoft products to run a number of core systems and desktop systems. We have roughly 800 servers, 6,500 desktops, numerous databases for Kronos, Primavera, Movaris, and Microsoft Office. This also includes Microsoft 365 Cloud Solution, which moves our email services to the cloud and allows staff to communicate from any device, anywhere, at any time. Therefore, we are requesting approval to enter into a 3-year agreement with Dell Microsoft LP for, I'll get this one right, $6,032,131. 46 cents. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Carrie Jew, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. This morning, I'm presenting Board Resolution Number 15, which seeks authorization to enter into an agreement with HG Supply Facilities Maintenance Limited. Since November 2012, HG Supply has successfully performed on various blanket agreements totaling nearly $2.9 million. Under this new agreement, HG Supply would provide and deliver a variety of commodities ranging from to commonly used maintenance and skilled trade supplies to expedite repairs to apartments and public spaces. HG Supply offers competitive pricing versus current suppliers, and they have a fleet of trucks enabling them to provide next-day delivery on most orders, whereas most other companies under current contracts have a delivery window of 15 to 45 days. Another benefit of the quick delivery timeline is that NYCHA will be able to reduce its inventory levels, as NYCHA will no longer need to keep certain items in stock. This agreement will also allow us to consolidate multiple commodities under one comprehensive agreement, thus streamlining the process and eliminating the need to perform multiple procurements. Our implementation of the agreement will take a progressive phase-in approach. HG Supply will provide NYCHA with a select group of commodities, including plumbing and heating and electrical supplies. These commodities were chosen as they require quick delivery and directly impact skilled trades productivity, as well as work order completion times. Once HG Supply demonstrates that it's able to successfully meet that are in stock at LIC, our warehouse, will be first drawn down and not replenished. These items will then be added to HG Supply's list. Based on the total material spend for 2015 and based on average on an average percentage of NYCHA inventory items, we estimate the cost to be $136,718,123 over the 5-year contract period. Therefore, I'm requesting your approval to enter into the agreement with HD Supply commencing November 30th, 2017 and continuing through December 31st, 2021.
You mentioned that you expect this to generate cost savings. That's one of the reasons. Do you have an estimate of the cost savings that this represents?
I don't have an estimate right now. It really depends on how quickly we can deplete our inventory and which commodities come on. Some of the pricing on the commodities in this contract, because it's a bulk contract, is better than pricing that we receive now. But it also depends on what we're going to use over the next 5 years.
So maybe talk about sort of how you're going to track that and report back to the board as to what we're seeing in terms of the cost benefit.
Right. So we are having a phased in approach. So the first items that we are using, we will be phasing in. We'll draw down from our warehouse and then we'll begin to use from HD Supply, and we'll be able to track what we're using. And then we will be able to show what the difference in the pricing was on the items that we're using through HD Supply as compared to the items that we've used in the past. We've done a very thorough analysis with HD in terms of what our needs are, specific needs are, and we've ensured that they can match that we're requesting.
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm Josephine Rousseau, Vice President of Supply Management. This morning, I am presenting Board Resolutions number 1617 and 171819, which seek authorization to award 4 citywide indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity IDIQ contracts for maintenance painting of apartment and interior and exterior public spaces. I have a little cold. Historically, housing painters were used for any work that is estimated at no more than a single day. Typically, they are used for work tickets. A couple of walls need to be painted. When larger jobs need to be completed, they are generally contracted out. That keeps the authorities' painters free to work on the smaller jobs and helps keep the work ticket count down. The main focus of these IDIQ contracts is to provide the ability to paint interior and exterior public spaces. Due to budget restrictions, the authority has not had a formal public space painting program in over 5 years. This left vulnerable exterior metal work such as costly steel bar fencing and other surfaces exposed to the elements and subject to corrosion. The contracts will provide a means to complete the work and protect our assets as funding allows. Typical items of work would include all types of fencing, doors, lobbies, and common areas except stairwells. The contracts also provide capacity for the painting of apartments in the event the site-specific contracts have expired and the replacement contract award is delayed. Sorry. These delays can occur due to VNC or other compliance issues that must be vetted before work can begin. Through these IDIQ contracts, the authority guarantees to order a quantity of work with a minimum value of $150,000 per contract or $600,000 in the aggregate over the course of 3 years, which was a reasonable budgeted minimum amount. The authority is under no obligation to order more than the minimum value, but may not order more than $2.5 million per contract or $10 million in the aggregate. Board Resolution number 16 seeks authorization to award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Adelphia Contracting Corp. The first, second, and third lowest bidders were deemed non-responsive because they either failed to provide a formal proposal and or failed to provide a bid security. Adelphia has completed approximately $11 million worth of painting services over the past 5 years and has indicated on their Section 3 hiring plan that they intend to hire 5 residents in the title of apprentice painter. A vendor name check was requested on October 5th and is pending. There will be no award until a VNC is vetted and approved. Board Resolution 17 seeks authorization to award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, New Apps Management Corp. The First through sixth lowest bidders were deemed non-responsive because they either failed to provide a form of proposal and/or failed to provide a bid security. New Apps has completed approximately $11.1 million worth of painting services over the past 5 years and has indicated on their Section 3 hiring plan that they intend to hire 5 residents in the title of apprentice painter. In October pending, there will be no award until a VNC is vetted and approved. Previously, NYCHA's OIG conducted an investigation and reported billing irregularities on New Apps invoicing. In consultation with the law department and operations, it was recommended and agreed upon that a DOI monitoring agreement be put in place to audit the vendor's invoices. The vendor is aware of this and has agreed to pay the cost for this agreement. Board Resolution Number 18 seeks authorization to award to the first and lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Bloom Construction, Inc. Bloom has completed approximately $5.2 million worth of painting services over the past 5 years and has indicated on their Section 3 hiring plan that they intend to hire 2 residents in the title of painter. A vendor name check was reviewed and approved by November 15th. Board Resolution Number 19 seeks authorization to award to the first and lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Mount Olympus Restoration, Inc. Mount Olympus has completed approximately $795,000 worth of painting services over the past 5 years and has indicated on their Section 3 hiring plan that they intend to hire 5 residents in the title of apprentice painter. A vendor name check was reviewed and approved by procurement on 11/13. Any questions?
I guess the approach to this, so I know in other contracts, sometimes we have multiple contracts doing the same work, but a couple for, let's say, Bronx. In this case, it seems like it's all citywide. Is the scope of their work the same? And I guess I was just wondering the reasoning or the thinking behind the approach in this case to have multiple contracts that are all citywide as opposed to.
So historically, our contracts were requirement contracts. So every contract needs consideration, and with a requirement contract, there's exclusivity. So this is a new approach. This is IDIQ. So the consideration is the minimum amount. So each contractor is only guaranteed the $150, and we can use them cost authority wide. With the other contracts, they're limited to where they're assigned. So they're basically development based, and this is authority wide, and this is for public space, not for interior space.
I see. So this gives us greater flexibility,
Yes.
in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it.
No, just that. I think in terms of the line importance of this is we are looking at our public housing assessment program, which HUD comes and reviews our public spaces. We haven't had a program to address some of the paints for years now. So this really gives us an opportunity to increase our scores and increase the safety and beautification of our sites.
Any further questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Feel better.
Thanks.
Item number 20.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Karen Caldwell, CFO of NYCHA, and I'm presenting item number 20. So item number 20 requests authorization to enter into a supplemental long-term power supply agreement with New York Power Authority, or NYPA, to provide electricity to various NYCHA developments citywide for the period January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2027. The agreement between NYCHA and NYPA represents the result of negotiations power supply agreement. The supplemental agreement will commence on January 1, as I said, subsequent to the expiration of the existing power supply agreement with NYPA, and continue through, again, December 31, 2027, unless terminated earlier pursuant to its terms. NYCHA has received HUD approval to enter into a 10-year contract term for this agreement. NYPA has been the electricity provider for the various local government entities located in New York City since 1976. NYPA is able to offer advantageous pricing due to the consortium of the government entities, the MTA, the City of New York, the Port Authority, and New York and New Jersey, Battery Park City, Empire State Development Corporation, collectively the NYC governmental customers. That allows for additional opportunities for risk mitigation and hedging strategies. In addition, NYCHA has various capital investments that are spread out over many years, and these investments can be financed with a secure customer base to support their costs, as well as to provide a reduction in total energy costs. The long-term contract further provides operational and capital stability. The authority currently spends approximately $165 million a year to provide electricity across all the boroughs under the LTA, which represents over 98% of the electricity purchased by the authority. The LTA is lower than that rate charged by Con Edison. In addition, and as a result of the LTA, last year, the authority recovered over $28 million through the rate reduction incentive filing with HUD, which allows savings created through lower cost alternatives, such as purchasing electricity through NYCHA, which has lower cost than Con Ed. The financial reward is equivalent to 50% of the utility cost savings achieved by going with NYCHA over Con Ed. Any questions?
Some background questions. So NYCHA, sir, is the energy source for pretty much all of the authority?
Electricity.
Electricity, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and the reference to what?
They are basically extending the current agreement. That's why it's called supplemental.
Okay.
Any questions?
And just, again, you described the city entities, but just talk a bit about that process and our role in that too.
Right. So historically, all of the city customers were all under one contract. This time, what NYCHA sought to do was to sort of divide the city customers and really to determine whether or not their individual needs were a bit different. As we went through the process, we found it most advantageous to partner with the city of New York. And so our contract pretty much mirrors the city. That's interesting is that there are a lot of things that are going on. There are clean energy standards that the states, there are hydro plants that we had to make the choices on whether or not to take. There are nuclear facilities that need to be either decommissioned or supported. And so we went through a very long series of negotiations and talks and talking about transmission lines and things I never thought I'd understand at all. But I think those negotiations really resulted in us being able to get sort of the cheapest price. There are some costs that fixed costs that we're no longer going to take on in this new contract. So I think from a financial standpoint, we came out the best I think we could in this circumstance. Again, we're going to be aligned with the city as we move forward, and you know, that savings will accrue to NYCHA, at least 50% of it through this rate reduction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Somebody has to do it.
Hello. Board Resolution Number 1 seeks authorization order to a requirement contract awarded to Power Mechanical Inc. for rental and installation of temporary steam or hot water heating boilers, heating exchangers, and temporary oil tanks authorized by Board Resolution Number 13 on the 10/23/2013 board calendar, and is subsequently amended for an initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option to increase the not to exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services for an additional 1 year, which commenced on November 17, 2017, and is continuing through November 16, 2018. This 1-year extension is needed to provide uninterrupted service to the authority's developments, especially now that we are into the 2017-2018 heating season. The amount of additional funding was determined by Operations Heating Division based on 2018 projected needs of $1.5 million plus an additional $295,000 to pay any outstanding invoices for a total of $1,795,000. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, the rental and installation of temporary steam or hot water heating boilers and temporary oil tanks to be delivered on an as-need basis to any authority development citywide. The equipment is ordered under one of two pre-priced scenarios. The most common is on an emergency basis due to a failure of one or more of the development's boilers that impacts the ability to provide heat and hot water. The delivery time is 48 hours from day of order. The second and far less common is a rental for a planned outage. The delivery time is 30 days. In both scenarios, one or more appropriately sized mobile boilers are delivered and staged at the development. The boilers are tied into the development steam distribution system, and the existing boilers, or completely take over the demand for steam depending on the severity of the outage. The contract is structured by unit prices for all the various size boilers and other equipment. Rental rates are on a monthly basis. Currently, 16 mobile boilers and 6 mobile tanks are being utilized authority-wide. This change order will provide interim capacity while a replacement contract is being procured. The replacement contract is out for bid with the closing date of November 30th. This is the second round for this procurement. The first round was unsuccessful due to the sole bidder being deemed non-responsive because they did not provide the PLA letter of assent. Typically, there is limited bidder interest in the scope of work. When potential vendors were questioned, the main reason cited for disinterest was the most unpredictable nature and short response time for delivery. Any questions?
Well, that's an interesting statement. I want to come back to that. But are these, and I see it says oil tanks, but are the boilers, are they natural gas or are they oil based?
So I need some assistance here.
Oil, gas,
So they're oil.
they're oil.
Yes, they are oil.
Is the,
By law, actually.
by law?
Oil except you can't.
Except in Sandy, we have gas.
Right.
Right. Except an exception there. Okay. Going forward in the new contract, it's also oil?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so if the industry is telling us that they don't want to respond to this business, and yet we clearly will have this need given the age of our assets, what does that?
It means we'll probably get the same vendor on the next bid.
Okay. Oh, great. Maybe we should open a boiler business. Okay. Thank you.
Hello again. So I'm back for items 22 through 24. Just want to give a little context because today I can't do anything simple. So all of these three votes relate to the fact that generally in replacing gas risers, the work could fall into one of two wage rates, the mechanical or the wage rate A. If it's very straightforward, you're replacing in kind, it's really repair. It could be minor things that change it. It could fall into the higher A rate. Our law department is in ongoing conversations with the city's law department, the city's labor department, about how this work falls within these two wage rates. We voted to award a contract to Richards Plumbing earlier this year. They bid on just applying the mechanical rate, the MES rate, the lower rate. We are recommending that we rescind that award, that we not go into activating a contract with this not yet resolved. On the other hand, because we're entering heating season, we need to have capacity. We are recommending that we increase capacity in two existing contracts. We still have the tension, and we will provide change orders under these existing contracts if we have to apply the A rate. But we just figured we would rather deal with contracts already in place, capacity there, rather than start a brand new contract in this period of not having any decision yet. So item number 22 is the recommendation to rescind the award and reject the bids for plumbing at various developments in Brooklyn and Staten Island that was awarded to Richards Plumbing and Heating. And then in items 23 and 24, to provide increases to plumbing contracts to Richards Plumbing citywide so that we cover our need in the interim while we continue to negotiate with the unions and City Hall about which wage rate applies. We are proposing to increase the capacity of both contracts by $6 million to be covered generally by federal funds.
So what's the timing on the resolution of this? Do we have any idea?
I don't, it's been going on months at this point,
Yes.
and we can't get anything definitive.
And these are our, which union? This is,
It's the plumber,
it's our plumbers. Okay,
Plumbers,
just
yeah.
have to make sure. And then, and so in the proposed new contracts, which rate will apply?
in the extension of the contracts.
Extension, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to the extent we agree that a particular project requires the A rate, we will do a change order to pay under the A rate. Otherwise, this
Stay
was
with it.
MES, right? And so this becomes very particular. What's happening right now is every time we need a gas riser replacement job, law and CPD are looking at the very specifics of how are we doing our riser replacement and making our best good faith decision.
So how does that work? I mean, in terms of just and getting service restored as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, it doesn't interfere tremendously on a particular job. Our guys go in, they can see that they're going to have to jag or switch over a piece of, this is my lay term.
Go for it.
They have to make a change to get around a beam that wasn't there before. That throws you into the A rate. So when they're out there doing their cost estimate, they can fairly well see, and then we get law, we refer to law, we get agreement. It's a wage rate issue. It isn't a matter of scoping or how you do the work.
Okay. Thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you. I make this stuff up, guys. All right.
Madam Chair, 24 items were presented for board approval. Do I have a motion to approve the items?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move that the members be authorized to meet in executive session today to discuss the civil investigation demand.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Desmond.